أناجي قائلا يا حنان بالنبي الأمي وخديجة أمي والبطول الختم سيدات النسوان شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان بالقبول والغفران بالنبي الجم من أبينا آدم وبنوح الأقدام وخليل الرحمن جد لهذا الإنسان عبد سوء خزيان من ذنوبه وحلان خائف إنك غضبان شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان بالقبول والغفران والصلاة دائم على النبي ابن هاشم عدما هو قائم بالعبادة سهران شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان بالقبول والغفران شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان بالقبول والغفران شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان شيل الله يا رمضان بالقبول والغفران.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. So we're going to get started. I think it's a slightly different opportunity for us today and slightly different show. And we have lots of different guests on today talking about a variety of different things. And we've actually got Nathan Whiteley, Head of Children's Services, who's also online. Can you hear us, Nathan?
Yep, I can, Asim.
Brilliant, excellent. Okay, good evening to you as well. And we've also got a number of different things that are going to happen today, including a couple of different poems. So we had a poem competition, and so we've got a couple of different poems that are going to be recited. And then we've also got a couple of different people on as well. But as we normally start with the Ramadan Iftar hour, we're going to be starting with a recitation of the Quran. So I'm going to be reading today. I have the privilege of reading today. So I'm just going to be reading Surah Al-Qadr. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. صدق الله العظيم. So keeping it very short today, as we've got a couple of other things, and inshallah it's a reminder for all of us as well that the last 10 days of Ramadan are a blessed opportunity for us, and inshallah an opportunity for us to catch the Laylatul Qadr. I'm going to just very quickly now, we're going to have a conversation with Nathan. Nathan has asked, Buckinghamshire County Council actually got in touch with us because over, I don't know, maybe the last couple of years, the Bucks County Council fostering service are normally in touch with Radio Ramadan, but as we know, Radio Ramadan is not happening this year. So they got in touch with us to see if there was an opportunity for them just to come on and maybe have a quick sort of short conversation and just talk about some of the opportunities and some of the challenges, I suppose, with regards to fostering, and especially fostering, and obviously for us in terms of the Muslim community is particularly important, because we know the Prophet ﷺ was adopted from a very early age. But I think this is much more about much more than just adoption, but also includes fostering and children's services and sort of looked after children as well that are within our community, and it's also a sort of a responsibility for us to try to support as and when we can. So Nathan, just to introduce you, so head of children's services, so you have a sort of a responsibility to look after that whole sort of area, including some social care, some social services as well.
Yeah, so my responsibility is wherever a child that's in care lives. So that would that be a residential home? Would that be fostering? Would that be going towards adoption? And some of our foster carers are actually family and friends as well, but we register them as foster carers. So anywhere where a looked after child will live.
Okay. And could you describe actually what a looked after child actually means, and what does that mean for, you know, how would that child become a looked after child?
Yeah, well, so it's in every child's interest to stay with their family first and foremost, as long as that's a safe environment for them to be in. So what we do is we endeavour is to try and keep every child at home. But when that can't happen for varying reasons, and there are a number of different reasons that can't be, then we first and foremost we will look at a family or friend if they could look after the child with some help. Sometimes that may not be the case, but that's what we strive for, especially in Buckinghamshire. We've grown our family and friends foster carers. And then we'll look at mainstream foster carers, ideally someone who is similar or someone who can understand where the child's been, can relate to their family, to their kind of lived experience, what their story is. And so often that would be the parents have agreed for a child to come into care just while they get better, or while we help them get into a situation where a child can return home. And sometimes we share a parental responsibility with a parent because they're not in the right position yet for that child to return home.
And so could you, so the idea really is for you to come on and talk really about some of the challenges and I suppose the support that's needed from the wider community to try to sort of alleviate some of the difficulties and the challenges, and to support some of the children. And in particular, we talked earlier, and it's a wider service, but in particular for Muslim children.
Yeah,
on this occasion.
Yeah, I think it's really important for children to be looked after by people they can relate to. Okay, and that doesn't mean that you know, foster carers, good foster carers could look after any child, any age, any background. But I think it's easier for a child to assimilate into a family if they can smell the same sort of smells, you know, if they can see the same things, if the language is similar, if just the way people look is similar, it makes it easier. And that's maybe one of our challenges in what is quite a broad county as Buckinghamshire. You think of from all the way from, you know, someone like Buckingham, all the way down to kind of the Slough borders and everything in between. You know, we've got large conurbations, large urban areas, then we've got large rural areas as well. So I think it's a real challenge to try and match up what would be our foster care would be in one side of the county to a child who may be in an urban area, for instance. So that's why we need a broad breadth of carers, you know, who come from all different communities to try and make that easier for a child when they come into care, and easier for a child then to leave care, because they give them the right sort of support and give the family the right sort of support for that child to hopefully return home, and if not, to flourish, to do well in school, to become healthy, to be active, and to become a good member of their community.
And I think that's a really important point that you make there, because there would be obviously some challenges, some turbulence around a child's life, and then those things around trying to assimilate, knowing people speaking a similar language, or aware of the cultural challenges and the cultural difficulties, and obviously on religious challenges as well. So that would certainly help. Just certainly help in terms of that, to reduce the turbulence and reduce those difficulties, and that's kind of the idea, I assume.
Yeah, and also because also families will feel more comfortable as well. You know, if you come to a stage in your life where actually you can't look after your children, and your children are going to go to people that you probably can't relate to, that's going to be a challenge as well, I think. And if I don't want children to see their parents upset because of where they are, etc. So that's why we need a broad range of foster carers and adopters. For that reason.
And we obviously had a chat earlier, Nathan, and I wondered if you were able just to relay some of the information that you talked about earlier in terms of the potential for the numbers of children that you've been in Bucks County Council for a couple of years now. You mentioned in the number of children that are sort of going through and passing through your service, and therefore the need for Muslim carers to try and support that and try to to provide that support for those children that are going through the service. And actually, and we again, if you don't mind, just sort of touching upon where the challenges are where those children might end up if they're not housed within sort of the local region. Yeah,
so we have around about 500 children that are in care at any one time in Buckinghamshire, but that's movable. So children become 18, they leave care, and children return home as well. But about every year, 300 new children come into care. Okay, and of those, around about, and my stats are kind of flexible but it's around about 10% of children that come in are from Muslim faith. Okay, so when we look at that, and when we look at Buckinghamshire as a county, have we got 10% Muslim population? Probably not. So therefore, there's a greater need in for Muslim carers to come forward, and it's not isolated also to our Muslim carers. It's also for our Black Caribbean and Black African children in the same way.
Okay, and so at the moment, if a child was to come through the service, where would they be likely to be housed, or where would they kind of end up?
Well, predominantly, we're very lucky in a way, but let's be clear. Most of the time, they will stay within Buckinghamshire, but often, unfortunately, some of our children, and that's a broader range of children, will sometimes have to go out of the county. We've made some great strides the last 2 years to try and keep children within the county, and this is a national issue, trying to keep children close. And the benefits of keeping children close in terms of schools, family, education, and all those things we know are obvious. But so sometimes children have to move out to the kind of our borders areas, going into the London area, going into Slough, going out that way, maybe the M1 corridor, kind of Watford and Bedfordshire, etc. So it's even more important that we try and keep people local. We've got good schools, we've got good health to support children, so we want to keep them local, and that means social workers don't have to travel so much, children don't have to travel as much to get to school, parents, it's easier for parents to have contact with their children, so that's why it's important. So as well as the match in terms of cultural match, I think being in Bucks, being in your same town, if that's possible, that's the biggest match, and that's the one that we strive to conquer.
Oh, that's a really important one. So just thinking about also if people might be really interested, they might really want to do something like this, but they're not sure. There will obviously be lots of safeguarding bits and pieces that they'll need to go through. And I suppose also how long on average would it be? And again, I appreciate it might be a very, very difficult question, but how long on average would a child possibly stay with a foster parent or a foster carer?
Yeah, so that it depends. Sometimes what the child needs, is a week or two. Then we've managed to work with the family to get the children home. So that's or to be with relatives.
Yeah.
If for some reason we're going to court because we actually it's agreed and that actually maybe a child shouldn't be returning home straight away, it'd be about 9 months with that carer. But then the child will then move into what would be a long-term care or adoption. So they're the two things. It's kind of very short term. It's kind of that medium term, which will be kind of up to a year or so, and then it's long term. And it's long term sometimes where we struggle most, because as you can imagine, it's easy to say, yeah, I look after him for a couple of weeks. Yeah, let's see how it goes. Or yeah, it's a year. I know a year is going to be quite a bit of time, but we can do that. But to say actually, I've met this child 2 or 3 times, and then come live with me till they're 18, 21, 25. I mean, it's a huge commitment. It's a huge commitment. But they're the people that make the incredible difference to children's lives. Is to say actually to commit for that long. So there are three types of carers, but we need all of those carers.
Okay.
We need all of those carers.
and it just, again, in terms of trying to find information, where would people go to? So what we can do is, if you have any particular information, you can we can either put it up on our social media form feeds and bits and pieces as well, or if you could just share it with now, and people can then start maybe having a look.
Yeah, that'd be good if you could. It's best we keep it web based, really, because I think that's we've got a good website, and that's the quickest way. So there's an email address, okay, which is Foster with Bucks at buckinghamshire.gov.uk. So it's Foster with Bucks at buckinghamshire.gov.uk.
.gov.uk, yeah.
Okay, so that's probably the best way. There is a website, and the website is buckscc, so buckscc.gov.uk/fostering. But if you put Buckinghamshire Fostering into Google, and you look for the council site, we're by far the largest fostering provider. So every child that needs to be foster, it's the county that looks for that foster placement. If we can't find an in-house carer, which we most of our carers are in-house, sometimes we'll ask for an independent foster carer, and that's often when the child will have to leave the county because we haven't got a carer who's in-house, as we call them, one of our Bucks county foster carers.
Cool, thank you. So again, I think it's really important for us. We've got a couple of guys on later who are going to be talking about the community response to the global pandemic. And again, just in terms of that, there is a need for everyone in the community to play their bit, and there will be different people. There will be lots of people who probably might struggle actually being foster carers, but there will be lots of people who actually have the skills, the nurturing abilities to really help and support these children. And we definitely encourage anyone who thinks they might be interested to get in touch. And I'm sure, again, Nathan, there's a process that they have to go through, and conversations that they need to have that will help to determine how long, and they can obviously then decide whether it's going to be a week, a month, a year, or whatever.
Yeah, of course. And what I'd also like to say to people is about foster carers in your community is about giving them support. So we can't all be foster carers. I do my bit. Other people do their bit. We have teachers that support our foster carers. We'll have residents that will have neighbours as foster carers. They're the ones who actually will be tolerant, be patient, maybe because one night it's a bit noisy, or it's the whole community that will become and support the foster carer. So if you're an employer and you've got an employee that wants to be a foster carer, that's what we'd like to see. We'd like to see that supported. So we can all play our part. We can definitely all play our part.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So what we'll do is we'll definitely put out some of the links and the information that you've provided us today with Nathan. Is there anything else that anything that we might have missed out that you wanted to talk about, to mention very quickly?
It was the only thing was about the support that we offer our foster carers.
Yeah,
so it's really over the last 2 years we've developed. We pay foster carers. We pay foster carers well, but it's no substitute for a full salary. But we offer support and guidance and lots of training that can be in place as well. So it's important to know that you will be looked after. You will be looked after.
And I think that's what I was trying to get at in terms of the support, in terms of the questions that people have. You're not going to be sort of chucked in at the deep end. There will be support, and there will be, I'm sure the council will still be on hand, if there are any questions and queries constantly throughout the process.
Yeah, we've actually found in this time virtually it's been almost better support carers have got, and better because actually we can see 10 carers a day rather than 2 or 3.
Right. Okay.
And we found this in some ways it's been a better period for us as fostering. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Well, hoping and praying that there are some people that might come forward and that will help and support sort of that work. And again, thank you so much for spending your time on a Sunday evening. I'd imagine you don't normally walk around on a Sunday evening with your suit and tie on, but thank you for taking the time to come in.
That's a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
From one of our viewers, can only couples foster or apply to foster, or is it
most definitely not. as we say, every child will do best in a different household, and sometimes single households are far better households for a child to be in. You've got one view then, and you've got one parent, one view, and sometimes for some young people that's good. So I think it takes all sorts.
Thank you.
Okay, bro. Thank you so much for coming on, Nathan.
Thank you, Sim.
And
Take care.
thank you for your time this evening. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye. Right. We are going to be passing on to Ibrahim, who was the winner of the 16 to 18 age category for the poetry competition. He's going to be reciting his poem. And he's got, Ibrahim, you've got 1 minute.
Okay.
Or maybe 2 minutes. But read it nice and loud, please, so we can hear you.
Yeah. So it's called Ramadan in Lockdown and a Hope for the Future. The streets were bare, the markets closed, the world was full of awful woes, for in our midst had there come a plague as obvious as the sun. So many people did it fell, that when they told us it had no effect of human sympathy or sadness, rather a self-centered madness, culminating in the shops being full of a desperate lot. The virus had been taking its toll, so they were fighting over the bog road. Now it was the holy month and everybody was stuck inside, except for one little lad who thought he'd go outside. It's a wonderful sunny day, said he. I'm glad to be out here in the countryside away from those people living in fear. But one thing does perplex me so, it hurts my clever brain. We are in the month of Ramadan and what is there to gain? Now here occurred the strangest thing, for it seemed to him, for on the breeze there came a voice that was like the wind, soft and breathy, as if it was the voice of a breeze, and in that moment silence did it proceed, and said to him, now little laddie, you listen to me. There's an idea which I want you to see, and the fact is that your situation is not as bad as you might think, for in this time alone you have time to sink into your prayers, thoughts, and Quran. So use this time to become a better little man. The little boy replied in a voice of half surprise, how can it be I cannot see a way to strengthen love and bondship and friendship in this lovely month? This time last year I was having triple helpings at my grandma's dinner table eating like a king, and in kinship and friendship we were happy as Larry, and now we sit at home alone with nothing but fear to carry. And the voice said back in kind affection, come on mate, look at it this way. When everybody no longer has to stay at home, your reunion with your family and friends will be greater and better in the end. And love will spread between us again as it did before, and it will increase tenfold and more. But the boy said, mysterious voice, I think I have no choice, but my question I have to voice, that in my mind appears that the people have shocks and fears, and Ramadan has come around, but of that we hear no sound. Rather, people living in fear and news blasting info in our ears has made people forget that Ramadan is here. And the voice replied, well, we have a bad situation now, and to fix it I don't know how. But in my mind I see a clear path for ye. Just focus on your prayers and Quran, and for this month alone you shall watch no television, and hopefully your real vision will become clearer than before. And so I think easily therefore will you connect to God and gain the most out of this month. The kid's little lips trembled in apprehension, for now he wanted to ask his final question, but in his mind so important was it that for a little while he could utter nothing but a little strangled cry. Then with a small swallow he opened his mouth and spoke aloud and let the question out. Mr. Voice, again I have no choice but to ask you a question, for it will lift my heart of all its tensions. Might I ask what you think the future shall hold? For in my mind I see nothing but more troubles and woes. And the voice replied in a hesitant voice that clearly showed should he have a choice, he would rather not say, but silent would he stay. Well, laddie, he said, I haven't the foggiest, but my guess is relatively modest, and I predict no Armageddon or destruction, rather a happier world with less tension. People will come out of their homes very happy and with not much worry, because everybody will realize that in reality they all need each other, and that they should meet and talk with each other and spend less time binging things, but rather watch a movie together in the evenings, and not just text their friends, but rather meet them face to face. Now, mate, you must excuse me here. I have tarried far too long because I've got to hop along. A busy man I am. I'll catch you later as soon as I can. And the boy cried, wait a moment, but met no reply. So he realized that the voice had gone and gave a sigh. He left for home with thoughts of what the voice had said, how to improve your Ramadan in lockdown and have a hopeful future.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. That was it was a very nice poem. And I hope there is hope for the future. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you're so enthusiastic. So that's Ibrahim. He is the winner for the 16 to 18 competition, poetry competition. Well done, Ibrahim. We hopefully you will have your prizes for the competition soon, inshallah.
Ibrahim, where do you get your motivation from? You know, the energy that you clearly are demonstrating, mashallah, through your spoken word. Where do you get this energy from?
My mom told me to do it.
No, I think it was more about where you're.
Was that with a
where
rolling
did you get
pin
the
or
ideas
just,
from for this particular
the
poem? Yeah, the idea of your poem. Where did that come from?
I found a poetry book in my garage, and I just looked at some of the ways that they wrote it, and I just thought that if I could try and kind of adapt some of the ways that they've been written into my own ideas. So.
And this particular laddie that's in your poems, is he, is he well known? Like, do you know him, or is he based on anyone?
No, I
No.
just up in my head.
Why did you choose the word laddie?
Because it rhymes.
What with Maddie?
Right. Thank you, Ibrahim. We've actually got lots to do, so thank you so much, Ibrahim. We've got a couple of other people who will be coming on later. We've got some of the children from the younger age groups who will be coming, but we're going to pass over now, or we're going to have a conversation with Iblal and Faizan. Assalamu alaikum, gents. How are you?
Good. How are you? Can you hear me all right?
Can you hear us all right?
Hear you.
Iblal, are you having any technical difficulties?
No, man. I finally got to the bottom of it. I'm having some hairline difficulties though.
do you want to borrow some?
So you know that we're live online, and my daughter's here is telling me to come downstairs. But anyway,
Brother Iblal, you look mashallah taller, and Brother Faizan, you look very short.
I'm saying down on the floor, sir.
Okay, so Iblal and Faizan have actually been they're not on just to talk about their hairline. They are on for an important reason, actually. So as I mentioned earlier, the show, today's Iftar Hour is much more about community spirit and some of the community action and activities that have been going on. As we all know, the global pandemic has affected pretty much every corner in the world, including our wonderful corner of High Wycombe. And Iblal and Faizan have been working as part of a team, but leading that particular team to develop a response to that. So obviously we know there have been challenges about people that we needed to shield, those people that were requested to self-isolate and then therefore weren't able to go out and get their shopping and their medicine and all those kind of things as well. So the brothers have been working very, very hard behind the scenes to try and support and to try to deal with that particular challenge that that was within our community. And this is just wider than the Muslim community, right? So there were lots of people that were Muslims who were who needed that help. So I wondered if you guys could just talk a little bit about the thought process. And remember, we don't have a lot of time, but just the thought process around that, and just the what else, what other kind of services were provided or have been provided, and
so in that sense, what we'll do is Faizan's written up majority of the Karima COVID efforts, and I was going to really talk about the more holistic picture around this. Why is it that we had to as effectively as we did? Why is it that the black and minority ethnic populations are more adversely affected? Where does that come about? Yeah, so I'll speak about that shortly after Fizan takes it away on Karima's effort. Yeah, go for it, Fiz.
Yeah, thank you. So, Alhamdulillah, so we've had a lot going on during the lockdown period. So it sort of first began with how do we send out the information and make sure that information reaches the uncles and aunties in our community who may not necessarily watch BBC News or understand English. So it sort of first began by disseminating government information. The social media team worked very hard on putting up YouTube videos in Urdu, Punjabi, so our elders in our community could understand what's going on around us and what we need to do in the lockdown. Then, as you mentioned, Asim, we've got the support group, which is there to support the community, whether that's with posting mail, food shopping, prescription drops. We are there ready to serve, as the leaflet says. Then you've also had, how do we ensure that we maintain a healthy lifestyle? So you had the fitness videos with Brother Atif as well that were being broadcast weekly. And now with Ramadan, Radio Ramadan, with that not broadcasting this year, that's left a massive plug. So, you've got Iftar hour, which has now filled that, inshallah. So me and Iblal have primarily been involved in the COVID-19 support group. And alhamdulillah, that's been a massive eye-opener for me, especially. We've done approximately 150 food parcel drops to the vulnerable and needy. We've also partnered with a local pharmacy to assist them on a regular basis with their prescription deliveries. That's on top of people contacting us, saying, can you help us with this prescription, from as far out as Princess Risborough. So although we leafleted and we primarily serve the High Wycombe community, we've had people from Princess Risborough get in touch, people from Marlow get in touch. We support an elderly lady out as far as Stokenchurch as well with weekly food drops. So alhamdulillah, the message has been spread far and wide. And there's been some great volunteering efforts coming out of this. So first shout out was to the actual volunteers who did the leafleting. So it's not easy distributing over 6,000 leaflets in such a short period of time, because obviously people need to be aware that there's support services available to them. And even though we advertised on other platforms such as social media, Facebook and Instagram and whatnot, most of our contacts have actually been because, I've received a leaflet through my letterbox. So inshallah, they all get a reward in the service that we're providing to these people. Secondly, the group of people that have done really well, alhamdulillah, is the people who partnered with the pharmacy. They dedicate, an amount of time each week to support the local pharmacy in doing deliveries. And then finally, you've got like the really enthusiastic volunteers where, they're the first people to respond as soon as you drop a message that a task needs to be done. And, serial reward seekers. And alhamdulillah, even just yesterday, I had to manage expectations and that message, look, I'm trying to give someone else a chance as well to get some rewards in this blessed month. So alhamdulillah, there's been some great volunteering efforts. One volunteer who I wanted to call out, his identity doesn't matter, but what he's been doing is checking in on his neighbors as well. So making sure that they're aware of the service that Karima offer. And he's even brought people to us that wouldn't have contacted us otherwise. So non-Muslim people in Carsfield and Oak Ridge who received the leaflet, but because they hadn't heard of Karima, they were a bit reluctant to get in touch. So he was giving them that extra assurance that we are here for the community, we are here to serve. So alhamdulillah, now we support them on a regular basis. And sticking to the subject with the people that we're supporting, 58%, I was looking at our contacts yesterday, 58% of our contacts have been from non-Muslims. So even though, first and foremost, Karima, you view it as for the Muslims, but this project has really been aimed at the whole community as such, and we've had that opportunity, and the stats show that. If I may, I want to share some messages of gratitude as well from some of the non-Muslim contacts that we had. I haven't shared these widely, so it's a world exclusive on Iftar. So from one elderly lady who was self-isolating with her son, she was saying, "Thank you so much from us both. You have taken a huge worry off our shoulders as we are not allowed out. We really appreciate what you are doing and wish you well at this time." If I may, another message that I had. So thank you for the food you delivered to me on Wednesday. I was very happy, as there can be several meals made with these ingredients and vegetables and fruit, which are important to keep us healthy. It is very good of you to help people in our community and keep us safe. And these two were handwritten letters. So it goes to show the effort this person's gone to and the gratitude they have for the service we've offered. And then a text message I received from someone. Thank you so much for shopping for us. You guys do wonderful work. No praise is enough. All the very best. So alhamdulillah, the service has been there for the community, and it's been very well appreciated as well from these people during this difficult time.
So just
And
can I just ask as well, just thinking about so all of that's quite, that's quite really important, so that physical, getting out doing the shopping, getting out to the pharmacy, those kind of things. Is it, and there's been other bits and pieces as well around just befriending services, I suppose.
So we offer a telephone befriending service. We're lucky that some of our volunteers have very suitable qualifications to help with that service. That's mostly targeted at the elderly who are living by themselves. So these are regular phone calls and catch-ups with these people to make sure that they are doing okay, how they are coping with lockdown, and seeing if there's anything we can provide. So one of the more unusual requests I've had is one of the sisters got in touch asking for a coloring book to be dropped off at an elderly person's house. I said, what do you need with a coloring book? And actually, I've learned myself, it's very therapeutic. It helps. And she was struggling with the fact that she had not had much contact with her family. And she was living on her own, and we were the only contact she was having for a while. Alhamdulillah, since then, she's had contact with the family. But then even just on Friday, she rang the line again asking if we could get the volunteer to call again. So because she was feeling a bit down. So you can see, alhamdulillah, just from a mental health perspective, there's a very valuable service that we're providing. And even you could just tell with the elderly, when they get in touch, they'll go off on a tangent, or they'll want an extra 5 minutes just talking to you. They might just ring you for shopping, but they'll talk about what the news said or what they've been doing. And you could tell that you can identify those individuals. Alhamdulillah, yes. So it's not just a physical activity, go get shopping, go drop off prescription. There's a very much so value-added service there as well, where we are supporting the community with their sort of mental health as well.
And just to ask, and just to say, actually, that this service will continue, right? Because obviously there is some of the restrictions have been lifted, but there will still be a lot of people that are shielding, and that they'll need to, that they'll still need some continued support, right?
Yeah, so alhamdulillah, so as part of this as well, and a big thank you to the donors as well, not the ones who have just donated financially, but the ones who have donated food items as well. What we've done is we've set up a temporary sort of food bank in Castle Community Centre. So with the long-lasting items, when we make a food parcel, things like pasta, UHT, milk, tuna, anything tinned, we can still go and grab those from the community centre. Then anything that's perishable, like bread, milk, and eggs, we can go grab that from a local supermarket. So we've got some long-lasting items there, and inshallah that will continue for the future. And we will see how we can potentially even set up a food bank. Obviously, the priority now is coronavirus and lockdown, see where this leads us. Inshallah, in the future, we've set something up which is currently temporary to help to potentially to set up a food bank in the future. So the infrastructure is being built.
So that's, again, incredibly important. And again, I think that bit about the infrastructure there is really important, and hopefully that's something that we can carry on. And I think that kind of leads nicely into something that Iblal was going to be talking about in terms of how we can, I suppose, continue to protect ourselves, and some of the challenges actually that our communities in particular will be facing, especially around those issues around health and health inequalities. So you've literally got, I know, again, this is a subject, Iblal, that you're very passionate about. It's obviously something that you do professionally as well, as supporting the volunteer efforts. And I'm sure there's something that you can talk about for the next 2 hours, but you've literally got 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
4 minutes, I'm going to make it.
4 minutes. All right. So let's do a quick whistle-stop tour. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
The voice in the background says yes.
Can you guys see my screen?
No.
Yes, 1 second.
Yeah?
Yes, we can see your screen, yes.
There we go.
All
Yeah.
right. Perfect. So I'm not going to take too long. This is a whistle stop tour for those who don't know about what health inequalities are and what social determinants of health are. So we see health as something in a very small window, what I have and what other people, who have better health, the absence of disease. But what I really wanted to highlight is I've got some stats of health in the health measurements of Oak Ridge and Castlefield compared to Holmer Green. A quick couple of them. I know that some people might be viewing on a mobile, so I'll just read them out. Um, Child poverty in Castlefield and Oak Ridge is not statistically more significant than the national average. We have GCSE achievement, which is very significantly worse off in Castlefield and Oak Ridge than compared to somewhere like Homer Green or even up the road, which is the Abbey Ward. Obese children going into school. The older people in deprivation, surprisingly, in Castlefield is more significant than Homer Green. And again, another one quickly that I wanted to highlight is life expectancy for males is 77, 77 and a half in Castlefield and Oak Ridge compared to, what is it, 81, so 82 years old. So what makes that difference of 4 years? Why are people in Castlefield on average dying 4 years earlier, and in the case of women, it's 2 years earlier? And what that's down to is social determinants of health. So a professor by the name of Michael Marmer in 2010, he went down to essentially, he was commissioned by the government to do a study into what are causing these gaps, these health gaps between communities. So he realized that it's mainly down to social determinants of health, which are conditions where people are born, grow, live, work, or age. And these circumstances are shaped by a lot of things. You've got money, power, resources at a national or local level. The key messages you guys can look up in your own time, and they're on the screen here. But one thing I did want to mention is the way to tackle these health inequalities is to empower individuals and local communities to rise up and face and tackle these issues. So that's one big thing that Karima's been doing for a long time since inception. They've been essentially empowering people, volunteers, to support the community in whichever way you want. So every child needs to have the best start in life. A study was done on whether children born into lower class families or families with a lower income, even if that child was at a higher percentile, you can see the child was in the top 10 percentile of cognitive score. They decrease towards the median as they grow older. And it's the same if a child was in the bottom 10 percentile of cognitive scores, even if they were in a more affluent family, they tend to go up. Now, why is that? I know Asim here, he works a lot with the youth, but this is looking at really children at the earliest ages of life. It's because generally people in middle to upper class families expose their children to more words. Their vocabulary is generally greater. They have better culture capital. But just quickly moving on. Enable all children, young people, and adults to maximize their capability. And that's something that we don't realistically see in our schools. Our teachers are trying their best, but what's happening is we don't really engage that well with our education system, our teachers. We don't follow up with the work that our kids are doing. And then at the same time, we don't really emphasize the fact that learning is a lifelong process, and it can have very real effects on the quality of work that you get into. The graph here just shows a percentage of illness from work for people that have either no qualifications or a lot of qualifications. 2+ A levels, a third level, and that's an old school metric. But I mean, you know, people are more prone to being put into dangerous working conditions if they have no qualifications, or, you know, more mentally repetitive tasks, which people can burn out from or causes stress. Again, the healthy standard of living for all talks about the minimum, what should be a good minimum wage. We'll move on from that one. But another one is create and develop healthy and sustainable places and communities. You can see here more deprived areas on the graph. There's a greater percentage of people that suffer from 3 or more conditions. Why is that? Is it because generally we have greater access to fast foods, restaurants like that promote unhealthy eating? Is it because we don't fully understand our diseases? We don't have as much access to literature. For example, someone who's an illiterate immigrant from Pakistan or any other country, they might not be able to read up on the NHS sites about how best to protect themselves from the conditions. Moving on, strengthening the role and impact of ill health prevention, more about speaking to people and getting the message out there. There's recently a study was done about the COVID issues, how information from the top of the government doesn't penetrate into the community. Why is that? Is there a lack of engagement between the upper and lower rungs of society? These are massive studies that are being done to find out what's happening. Marmot Review was done in 2010, and he come out with quite a lot of recommendations. I suggest you guys do look into them, read up what Fair Society, Healthier Lives was about in 2010. But since then, these are some stark figures that have come out in 2020 when they went back to do a review on this. Child poverty has increased. Funding has been cut significantly in deprived areas that need these services. Exclusion from schools have increased. Pupils have increased, whereas funding has increased per head of 8%. Youth services have been cut, with violent crimes increasing. Poor quality of work has increased. In-work poverty has increased. Food insecurity has increased, therefore increased reliance on food banks, which is why, you know, Fizan is working towards the infrastructural projects of being able to deliver things like this. Social mobility has declined. The income and wealth inequalities have widened. House costs has increased. You know, anyone who wants to try and buy a house is now enough impossible in Wickham, and you know, these are very real issues that I think in society. Poverty, homelessness, ill health, and one that I thought was quite staggering. There's more children in homeless families living in temporary accommodation. So, I mean, what that goes to show is we need a sustained effort to tackle these problems, and whatever people can do, you know, Karima's always there to empower you. I'm sorry, Mood, I've gone completely over.
No, I was going to say, I mean, one of the things that I think is incredibly important is about that lifelong learning. Is incredibly important. It's something that, you know, we can constantly be looking to do, but also starting from a very young age in terms of language, vocabulary, those kind of things. And it was only, and I did want to just shout out to both of you actually, because it was yourself and your idea to come up with the poetry competition which we ran. And one of the things you mentioned was about actually increasing the opportunity for creative writing. So I want to say Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for your time generally. And now we've actually got 2 of the winners of the poetry competition who are going to join us. If people would like to get in touch with regards to the COVID response, they can do. Just get in touch via any one of the social media channels, and we can, you know, inshallah, we'll continue to support, and then maybe we'll have some more information, you know, as and when it comes out. But Jazakallah khair, Iblal and Fizan, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to pass over to two very different looking people, Hira and Tahira. How are you girls? You okay?
Yeah, good.
Good. Right, we don't have a lot of time, so, but Hira, you won the competition for the 6 to 8 year olds for the poetry competition. Do you have your poem with you?
Yeah, I do.
Right, can you read it nice and loud for everyone?
When doors of heaven open wide, when doors of heaven open wide, and hell is locked, devils inside. So Shaban month strikes 29. The Muslims search the sky to find. The Ramadan new moon approaches with taqwa, blessings, and good hopes. So if they sight the moon, we fast, and when it's cloudy, 30 past. When the doors of heaven open wide, when the doors of heaven open wide.
MashaAllah. I really liked I really like your thing about this. It's a hadith as well, 29 days, and if you can't see it, then it's 30. So that's excellent. Thank you so much. So you're the winner for the 6 to 8, and then we have Tahira. Are you there, Tahira?
Yes.
Okay. I can't see your screen, darling. Is that your dad's not very good at the technology?
Yeah.
Okay, can you read your poem, please? Hello, Hashim. Zahida, you've got literally 2 minutes to read your poem.
Okay.
Nice and loud, please.
Firstly, the unhappy sat beside a tree. All he ever did was sob to himself quietly. He missed all his friends and close family and wished to be together with them happily. Usri was hardly ever cheerful. People would avoid him gladly, for he was always being sad and he constantly thought negatively. Usri imagined that Ramadan would be tiring along, but little did he know that he could be so wrong. Fortunately for him, along came Yusra the young, who was always thoughtful and her will was strong. She encouraged him not let lockdown bring you down. You should always be joyful and upbeat, do not frown. Yusra explained that Ramadan was a blessing. It's a month of worship, reflection, and fasting. We share foods and drink, families come together. The rewards gained this month will last forever.
MashaAllah. I really loved your poem about, what was that? Can you read that line about lockdown and trying to not frown?
She encouraged him to not let lockdown bring you down. You should always be joyful and upbeat, do not frown.
So inshallah, that's an incredible message for all of us. Inshallah, that we do not let lockdown bring us down and we should not frown. And then inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us. So thank you both so much. Are you going to be writing other poems in Ramadan? Are you going to be doing some more poems? Yeah, you're looking at your parents. Okay. Can you write more poems? I want you to write lots and lots of poems just about different things, okay? And was it easy writing your poems? It was? Okay. Then you guys are really good at writing poems. Okay, so you are both the winners. So Hira, you were the winner for 6 to 8, and Tahira was the winner for what was it, 9 to 12. We're going to put their poems up online as well, inshallah. So thank you girls so much. And I'm now going to quickly pass over to Maulana Thaman, who is going to talk a little bit, give us a short reminder before we pass through to the dua at the end, inshallah. Maulana, are you still there? You gone home?
Yes, I am.
MashaAllah. You are at home?
Yeah.
I just thought maybe you've gone down for iftar table.
No, not yet.
Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i Muhammadin al-Mustafa wa ala alihi al-mujtaba amma ba'd. I did want to share a few things today. We don't have time for a lot to be said, but I think now that we're in the last 10 days of Ramadan, so I just wanted to start off by mentioning something about these last 10 days of Ramadan. We have to realize that these last 10 nights of Ramadan are the holiest nights in the entire year. According to some scholars, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath by these 10 nights of Ramadan. In the verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wal fajri wal layalin ashr, and by the dawn, taken it, Allah swears by the dawn, by the fajr, and wal layalin ashr, and by the 10 nights. And scholars have said that these 10 nights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taken an qasam, an oath, by are the 10 nights of Ramadan, the last third of Ramadan. And so we've entered into an incredible portion and part of Ramadan, the last 10 nights of Ramadan, regarding which Sayyida Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha says that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam قالت كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل العشر مئزره, that he sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when the 10 nights arrived, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam would tighten his belt, and tightening the belt is an expression for things getting serious now. And now these are the last 10 nights of Ramadan. كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم شد مئزره, that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم would tighten his belt and buckle down, in other words, and get serious now. So it's a final sprint. It's the idea of final sprint, and no one finishes a race jogging. No one finishes a race slow in a manner which is slower than the entire race. And so no one finishes a marathon of jogging. It's always a sprint finish. And so we can see the end now. We can see the first of Shawwal. We can see the Eid day now. And so it's about finishing it strong, finishing the last days of Ramadan, the last nights of Ramadan strong. And I know some of us have started off with a sprint and are tired now and are feeling burnt out. But the truth is, it's not about how we start. It's not about the middle. It's always about the finish. It's about the end. And this is why in our du'as we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for husnul khatima, for a good ending. Ya Allah, grant us husnul khatima, grant us a good death, grant us a good ending. Because the fact of matter is that it doesn't matter how you live your life. It doesn't matter what you've done in your life. It's about how you finish. It's about how you pass away. It's about what you say. What are the last words on your tongue when you pass away? So it's not about what you did in the first days of Ramadan. If it was good, then you're rewarded. Then there's barakah in that, and there's rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that. It's not about how, and for those that didn't start off well, then they've got time. They've got time. And there are times, when you think that, man, I could have achieved more. I could have achieved more this Ramadan. Maybe I didn't do enough. Maybe, I had time. I could have read more Quran. I had time. I shouldn't have wasted it watching things that I shouldn't have watched. Watching Netflix, wasting it. Well, we still have time if we think like that. We've still got time. So Bismillah, let's buckle down. The second thing mentioned in the hadith is ahya laylahu, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyida Aisha says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa ahya laylahu, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would spend the night in worship. He would awaken the night. And scholars say that there's no mention of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam staying awake for the entirety of the night, except in the last 10 days of Ramadan. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would stay awake for the entire night in the last 10 days of Ramadan, example of which is not found in any night other than the nights of Ramadan. And so the Prophet ﷺ would remain awake, worshipping the entire night. And the last thing in this hadith, وَأَيْقَضَ أَهْلَهُ أو كما قال عليه صلوات ربي وسلام. The third thing that the Prophet ﷺ do in the last 10 days of Ramadan was to wake his family up. He would wake his family up and encourage them to worship in the last 10 days of Ramadan. And this is for us again, wake our family up, do something with the family, read some hadith, listen to a lecture, read some Quran, but spend some moments worshipping in the last part, in the last 10 days of Ramadan. And so to exert efforts in the last nights of Ramadan is very important. In another hadith found in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, Sayyida Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha says that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam يجتهد في العشر الأواخر ما لا يجتهد في غيره. That Sayyida Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala, Sayyida Aisha says that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam would exert effort in the nights of Ramadan like no other nights. And so the last 10 nights of Ramadan are extremely important. These are the jewels of the nights and crowns of the nights. These are the nights in which there's a possibility of them being Laylatul Qadr, there being Layla, the night of power. And so the night in which sinners become saints, the night in which we are removed from the pits of the fire of hell and we are entered into the gardens of Firdaus. These are the nights that are upon us, and these are the nights that we should take full, absolute. We should take advantage of these nights and spend these nights in worship of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. The second thing that I wanted to mention, and we really don't have time for that, is something, and I just wanted to the idea of morality and justice and essentially empowering the community that Brother Faizan was talking about, and Bilal also in relation to community work. And I just want to echo the sentiments of the brothers before me and share something from the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that even before the declaration of prophethood, that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was enthusiastic about bringing people in and fighting for social justices and doing good for the community, like what we've seen members of our society doing in the last month or two behind the screen. These are brothers that have been working hard during this pandemic and also outside the pandemic also. And so this is from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of these examples was the example of Hilful Fudul, when a man from a Zabid tribe of Yemen, he came into Makkah for tawaf and at the same time for trade purposes. When he came in, he came in, he started selling whatever goods and products that he had. One of the leaders, Asib bin Wail, extorted this person, this individual. He took the goods of this individual without paying him. So this man from the Zabid tribe of Yemen, he knocked on every door of the Quraysh tribe, but he was rejected. He wasn't given help. He wasn't granted help. And this now led to the formation of Hilful Fudul, where members of the community came together for the justice, where members of the community came together to help this person. And the Prophet ﷺ was at the heart of this group, of this Hilf, which was led by the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, Zubayr. But the Prophet ﷺ recognized the work that was taken. This was before the prophethood, this was before Nubuwwah, this was before Sharia, this was before Islam. But this was for morality, this was for community, this was for the help of people. And so it's very important for us to be involved in these kind of things and to help the community out where needed. وَمَا عَلَيَّ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. Back to you, Brother Asim, if you're still with us.
Yeah, I'm still here. Alhamdulillah. So I think it's incredible, inshallah, a reminder for all of us to tie our belts and inshallah involve.
Allahumma innaka afuwwun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Allahumma innaka afuwwun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Allahumma innaka afuwwun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني. 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 اللهم إنك إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني اللهم 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 إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. السلام عليكم.